Thing, Bob Whitcomb is around the corner in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center.
Great.
Nice to see you
What's
as
that,
always.
A hate app?
So it's called the
I think
Hater app.
I need one of them. Even though I'm usually the one being hated. So.
No, it's a dating app that the commonality is you identify things that you hate.
Yeah.
Molly, what do people hate most in Rhode Island?
Monogamy.
Vladimir Putin. The HBO show Girls.
Vladimir Putin, the HBO
Vladimir
show The
Putin.
Girls, and his...
Right.
And
Bidding paths?
no,
Is that just me?
It was very cute. So the young man who had invented it talked about a couple of his friends who I think both decided that they hated the Super Bowl, but
Yeah.
they liked queso dip. So when it was Super Bowl Sunday, they got
That's
together.
It's really depraved. I'm calling
There's
the lawyer.
something for everyone. As you know, there's something for everyone.
There is. Yeah.
Yes.
Every perversion fit your needs.
Queso dip
That's
seems
right.
pretty pedestrian to me. Well, I wanted to, as always, talk a little bit about what you wrote about last weekend
Yeah,
and your notes
sure,
about
yeah.
what you thought about this weekend. Now, one of the big overarching issues you had talked about was the smoking issue in Kennedy Plaza, but we
Right.
talked a little bit about
Right.
that last week. One of the ones that I wanted to kind of touch upon was your Democrats at sea in these special elections, what's going on,
Yeah.
and they might secretly be hoping for a recession, you said.
Well, maybe, in a way, yeah, some of them, I think. And I think there's a good chance for a recession. The future is obviously unknowable. Economic forecasts are usually wrong, but I think we're getting to the tail end of this business expansion. And there's so many negative things in the world from the Russians. By the way, the current cyber attack now, that's probably from the Russians too. That's from the Kremlin too. Yes, a few Russian enterprises were affected, but that's because it kind of got out of control. They were attacking Ukraine that some operation with Russian connections and affected them too. But it's fairly clear at this point the Russians behind that. I mean, they're an all-out cyber war against the West, and most people don't seem to care that much.
Well,
Get rid of your Microsoft, though. Apparently that's vulnerable.
Microsoft, really.
Yeah, this is great news for Apple.
Okay.
So, in fact, maybe Apple's behind it. Who knows?
Well, you say most people aren't interested in hacking,
Yeah.
although they are
Yeah.
when it could potentially, when there's talk about it impacting elections.
Yeah, right. That's
But
very scary.
that-
And we
is-
know they did get into election systems. It wasn't just they were trying to bring down Mrs. Clinton by releasing all this nasty stuff about her and her sidekicks.
It's pretty scary stuff.
Hmm.
As working at a
Yeah.
digital media
It's
company.
war. It's
But
war.
speaking of war,
Yeah.
as we always like to talk, you talk
Yeah.
about domestic politics,
Yeah.
international politics, the
Yeah.
Confucius Institute.
Yes, the Confucius Institute at Bryan, it's one of several, I don't know how many exactly, across the United States. Confucius Institute is an extension of the Chinese government that sets up these sort of educational centers at colleges, universities in the United States, perhaps elsewhere in the world too, in which they help Chinese language instruction, Chinese culture stuff. The big problem with the Confucius Institutes is, as I indicated at the beginning, is they're really part of the government. And they're used among other reasons to surveil Chinese students at American universities and colleges. They're used very much as propaganda organs for the Chinese government, which you may have read someplace. It's not exactly a democracy.
So it
They have
sounds like
concentration camps and.
You might have some concerns.
Yeah, quite a few. And I think Bryant out of self-respect, should get rid of the Confucius Institute there. I can understand why they signed on originally because they wanted to expand their
Their
knowledge and
footprint,
stuff. China is an incredibly important country after the U.S. That's certainly the most important country, and maybe soon to be the most important country. I'm very sympathetic, and Ron Makeley, the very able president up there, basically president for life, wanted to boost the Asian related instruction.
Now, where did this come from? What's your, how are you I'm going to write about the Confucius
Yeah.
Institute this week.
Where did this come from?
Yeah.
You mean where did the Confucius?
No, your
where?
brainchild
Yeah,
to
I'm
write
sort of
about this
aware.
week.
I'm just sort of aware of it. I've been following it for some years and been increasingly concerned about it. And there was one group of academics, I think it's called the National Association of Scholars, which has been demanding that Confucius Institutes be removed from American colleges and universities. I don't think she meant by force at gunpoint, but I think the important thing to remember is, as one of the Chinese officials said, this is very much an extension of the Chinese propaganda apparatus, and certainly we know it's a way of making it easier for the Chinese government to watch what Chinese students are doing when they're in these colleges, universities.
Keeping tabs on
Keeping
this.
tabs,
Speaking of
yeah.
keeping tabs on things, I love how you look around to the region,
Yeah.
and there was an interesting.
That's because I'm wandering around drunkenly trying to.
You're wandering around in Boston
right,
on the
yeah.
Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy
That's right,
Greenway.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, which has a fascinating way. It's not unprecedented, it's not unique, but they've done it better than most. I think they've created a financing scheme by which the admittedly mostly rich property owners alongside it will pay a fee to help maintain it. And the ultimate aim, I think, is to relieve the state government of any cost, relieve state and city government of any cost of maintenance, since the property owners alongside it are benefiting from it so much. And my view is, I think we could do more of that. Call it a user fee. As you know, I've always liked user fees because they're fairer. You know, you benefit,
Do you use it? You
use.
pay.
And so I think the ultimate aim is to get $2 million a year from these property owners to be used to maintain this very attractive, long sliver of green land. Whether that'll be enough, I don't know. There's a lot of wear and tear in the middle of a big city. But this is a good idea. I think they could perhaps do it here. And perhaps, I don't know, Roger Williams Park, Indian Point Park, at the head of Narragansett Bay, a few other places.
User taxes.
Yeah, user taxes, they're fair.
So
They're
check
fair.
out last week's column. What do you have on tap for this coming one?
Well, what we have, one thing is tidal power. You know, the old saw in New England has been that there's no renewable, you know, that we don't have any energy, which of course is baloney. We, long time, used a lot of water power. That's what helped put New England in the forefront of the American Industrial Revolution. We've had wind power, which is coming back now in a big way, both finally offshore and on land, and we've got solar power. Well, we've also got tidal power. We've got a very, very good region for generating electricity by putting, sort of call them mills, tidal mills, like windmills, in estuaries, which we have many. This is especially good north of Cape Cod. The further north you go from Cape Cod, the bigger the tides. Until
Okay.
you reach the highest tides in the world, the Bay of Fundy, just east of Maine. But all of New England has substantial tidal resources, clean energy. It's a little tricky. You can't just put them anywhere.
Yep.
They have to be in areas of estuaries where there's not a lot of boat traffic. They're tricky to install, but the Rhode Island NPR had, I think, a very nice interview with a fellow who's written a book about this, and I'm very happy to see this because I've been writing about tidal power for about 45 years since the first time anybody noticed.
Well, they picked up on it. You're going to write about it this weekend.
Yeah, you
Always
bet.
like to write about environmental things. Any political topics on the
Well,
agenda?
yeah, I think more about the Democrats. The Democrats have to pull down the Rainbow Coalition flag and cut way back on the identity politics, you know, gays, transgendered, whatever, ethnic, and just focus on socioeconomic issues, income inequality, public infrastructure, public education, stuff like that. They need to get back to saleable basics. In other words, they need to think of FDR and Harry Truman. And they've wandered off so much into all these little identity politics thing with everybody, of course, that's got some kind of weird identity. You know, it could be, some people could have a sexual desire for vegetables, and I suppose that's probably a lobbying group too.
Well, of course, there are those folks who say that that is something of importance to them, but I think in recent years, it has gained in popularity
It's getting very popular.
popularity and acceptance throughout the country. So maybe it's almost more of even just a feel-good issue that you say isn't tied
Time to cool it. Time to cool it. For one thing, we've made huge advances, huge changes. Some people wouldn't call them advances. Gay marriage, transgender bathrooms, and all that stuff. These are pretty dramatic moves for people, especially older people, to swallow. You know, let them kind of integrate it a bit, get off that, and get on to the issues that most Americans are most concerned about, which is their economic security, their opportunity, the hope that their children will do better than they did. A lot of these hopes have faded dramatically, and the Democrats need to get back to that. And they should realize that some Democrats are social conservatives. not older social liberals. And also, as part of this, I think Nancy Pelosi should go back to
Yes,
San
I
Francisco.
have seen your
Yeah.
writings on
Yeah.
Miss Pelosi.
Yeah, time to go, time to go.
Do you think that she will? Do you think she'll be ousted?
I think she'll probably try to stick it out through the congressional election. She's very proud and she's quite able on Capitol Hill at kind of corralling her people. She's actually a pretty good technician, but so far as the public goes, of course the Republicans hate her. She's the spawn of the devil to people in Fox News.
So before we let you go off and focus back
Yeah.
on local politics here, because Pawtucket Mayor Don Grabian is right around the corner, so don't go anywhere.
The police are here for them.
The police are here for who? Tony? Last question about Capitol politics.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen with healthcare
Even in Washington.
in Washington?
I think that nothing much will happen. That's my current
So
feeling.
they
I
didn't
think
have
it's
the vote
too
this week.
tormented.
Yep.
They may make a minor tweak or two, but I think a lot of the Republican governors are not pushing them on the Medicaid thing. See, everybody talks about the insurance exchanges. That's really a comparatively minor part of the Affordable Care Act, which is what pejoratively called Obamacare. I think there may even be a racist element to that, but
I thought there were some
Yeah.
studies that maybe Obamacare even depends on which week you ask
Yeah.
as to which term is more favorable amongst what
Affordable
parties.
Care Act, they've taken polls in the street. What do you think of Obamacare? It's terrible, it's terrible.
What do you think of the Affordable Care
That's
Act?
great. But the Medicaid expansion is the core of, to me, the core of the Affordable Care Act. And all these governors are terrified it's going to be pulled away. Medicaid is a federal-state partnership.
It will have a very huge impact
Big
here in Rhode Island.
impact. And so they're pushing back, and some of these moderate senators, some of the House, the same thing, especially from the swing states. Rob Portman, who would probably still like to be president, the Ohio senator, Republican senator. Susan Collins of Maine has come out against it. So I think Mitch McConnell, whose tactical skills I admire, he's a very good
Tactician,
legislative
yes.
tactician. I think this is beyond it. And meanwhile, the president is tweeting stuff about Nika Brzezinski's makeover, and
Yeah, that seemed to take a lot of the oxygen
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
which I won't have it suck up the air here,
Yeah.
because one of the things,
Yeah.
we spoke with a consultant down in DC, a Rhode Island native, former Scalise staffer who we had Skyped with a
Someone
couple
I
years
know?
ago. His name is Spencer Sullivan.
Oh yeah, I shared a cell with him in Lewisburg. I remember that.
But
guy.
we wanted to reach back out to him about healthcare, and he kind of pointed to what you did. He's like, well, when these things hang out there for a while, they become, it's just a political quagmire.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough as time goes by.
It's a good point, Kate. The longer it sort of dangles out there, swings slowly in the wind, which is a Watergate term, the worse it looks. The more people hate it.
Yes,
The more
so
problems people can
He
find.
did
with
warn
it.
against that.
So
I
I
know.
think they might try to punt. It's a much better run party. They have a very demented president, but it's a much better run party than the Democrats. They may think they can stick it out and get through the congressional elections.
We shall see. We'll see you back here in studio next week.
You
What
bet.
are your plans for the 4th?
I thought I would go out and buy some small tactical nuclear weapons at a fireworks store in Virginia and blow up some houses near me where they keep using leaf blowers. So what do you think?
You did not hear it here.
Yeah.
Bob Whitcomb's 4th of July plans
That's
are.
right.
Just be careful. Don't blow any fingers off.
Okay,
If you get one
I
phone
will.
call Josh.
Okay.
Bob Whitcomb, happy 4th. Thanks for coming in.
You. Glorious 4th.
Appreciate it. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bob Whitcomb, GoLocal Columnist, never a dull moment, either in his columns or in the studio, talking about last week's column, focusing on things in the Democratic Party. Interesting enough, international relations with the Confucius Institute, taking a look up to Boston and some examples of how they use user taxes up there, but then tack to what he thinks he might write about this week. Always environmental issues are hot topics for him. Tidal energy. And we'll see what he has to